It is currently pouring the rain outside, so I'm not sure if you can hear that, but I'm just gonna try to talk loud and hopefully it's not super distracting. It's really loud out there. Also, my necklace is broken, but I spent 2 hours today untangling it, which is why it's broken. I'm determined to wear this necklace for this video. Hey guys, it's Cher, and today's video is all about the Urban Decay Game of Thrones palette. It's not brand new, but it's new-ish. Chances are you've probably heard all about this palette already, but I wanted to do a video on it anyway because I didn't get it as soon as it came out. I actually got it as a birthday gift last month. Thank you, Mom. And I've watched all of the show and I own all of the books, but I haven't read them yet. Thank you, Ryan. And I really like the characters in the show. Not super happy with how the series ended, I'm not gonna lie. But overall, I liked the show and I thought it was really cool that Urban Decay came out with a whole makeup line based around Game of Thrones. And in case you haven't seen it yet, I wanted to show it to you guys today and talk about the different shades that come in it, and then also show you 4 different eye looks that I came up with using it. So this is the Urban Decay Game of Thrones eyeshadow palette. It reads on the back, "From the shores of Dragonstone to the frozen lands beyond the wall, this eyeshadow palette was inspired by our favorite places in Westeros and the strong women of the Seven Kingdoms." In case you couldn't guess, that's one of my favorite parts about this. Use this arsenal of 20 shades to declare your allegiance to House Targaryen, House Lannister, House Stark, or to defeat the White Walkers. Jewel tones and earthy neutrals give way to dark metallics and frosty shimmers, all of which can be customized with our 4 transformer shades. Prepare for battle with Stormborn, a glittery metallic purple, and Unwind with Lannister Red, a matte reddish brown. Choose your look and claim your rightful place on the Iron Throne. It's so cool. Okay. I haven't read the books yet, but I'm also like a big book nerd, and the outside of the box that it comes in kind of looks like the spine of a book, I think. To me, it looks like it would fit well on my shelf with the actual books themselves. That's kind of cool. That's different. The side of the actual palette looks exactly like the box. This is such cool packaging too. Like, I know it's an expensive palette, just like all Urban Decay palettes are, but honestly, you're paying for the HBO name, yeah, and the Game of Thrones brand, and the fact that Urban Decay isn't necessarily a cheap brand on its own. But also, I definitely feel like with this palette, you're paying for the quality of the packaging too, not just the eyeshadows. The shades themselves slide out of the side here. If I can jimmy them out. There we go. Also, I really like that the side where you pull the palette out of and then the bottom of the box kind of looks like a map of Westeros. That's just a little detail that adds a little something to it that you wouldn't necessarily notice upon first glance. And then I really like how the eyeshadows themselves are spaced out into 4 different sections, and they're separated into different places, houses, and characters from the show itself. So the top here is inspired by the North, and it has the shades Take the Black, White Walker, Frozen North, and Free Folk, with the Transformer shade being Hardhome. And then the second section is inspired by House Stark, and it has the shades Nymeria, Winter is Here, Weirwood Leaves, and The Sight. Its transformer shade is, of course, called Winterfell, which you'll get to see in this video was one of my favorite transformer shades in the palette. The third section is based on House Lannister, which is what I'm wearing right now, hence the Cersei-esque top and the Lannister red lipstick. If you watch the show, you get the reference. Anyway, the third section is based on House Lannister, and it has the shades The Red Keep, Casterly Rock, House Lannister, Lannister Red, and the transformer shade is called King's Landing. And then the fourth and bottom section here is based on House Targaryen, with the shades Stormborn, House Targaryen, Dothraki, Bend the Knee, and the transformer shade being this really pretty pink called Bay of Dragons. Now, if I'm not mistaken, the 4 large shades on the left side of the palette right here, the ones that I keep calling transformer shades, are supposed to be able to be used for both eyeshadow and highlight. Now, of course, some of these shades are not going to work for everybody for highlight, but a couple of them did for me, as you'll see in the 4 looks that I came up with. I thought that was kind of a cool idea to put in this palette because I just really like makeup that you can use for more than one purpose. Like, I'm totally someone who will use blush and contour shades as like eyeshadow. So the fact that those 4 shades were specifically created to be used as both eyeshadow and highlighter, I like that idea. Enough about the eyeshadow itself, let's get back to the packaging. One other really cool thing that I wanted to show about the packaging before I get into these 4 eye looks is that when you open it up, kind of like, what do you know, a book, obviously there's a, oh, I don't want to blind you guys, but hey look, it's my mirror. Obviously there's a mirror. That's pretty standard and to be expected for eyeshadow palettes that you're paying this much money for, in my opinion. It does not come with a brush, which I've seen a lot of people complain about in their own reviews on this, that for how much money you're spending, it should probably come with an eyeshadow brush, considering most of the other Urban Decay palettes that I have do come with brushes. I think that all the other Urban Decay eyeshadow palettes that I own have come with brushes, so that's kind of off. I'm trying to cover the camera up so it's not super blinding. On the inside of the cover is this large mirror, and then on the opposite side it reads a quote from Daenerys: Lannister, Targaryen, Baratheon, Stark, Tyrell. They're all just spokes on a wheel. This one's on top, then that one's on top, and on it spins, crushing those on the ground. Kind of a dark, depressing quote to put in a palette, but whatever. And then this is obviously my favorite part. On the bottom here, there's a little tab, and if you pull it upwards, there is this 3D pop-up of the Iron Throne. And it's like super 3D and cool. And it's really metallic, so it's catching the light right now so you can see what it is. There's one more quote underneath the throne. It's from Tyrion Lannister: "Never forget what you are. The rest of the world will not. Wear it like armor, and it can never be used to hurt you." And then it quotes Tyrion Lannister on the bottom, just like it did with Daenerys. This is why, even though it's not a brand new palette, I wanted to show it off anyway in a video. So for this video, after I got done unboxing the palette itself and then talking about the different shades that come in it, I wanted to try to challenge myself to come up with 4 different eye looks, only using the 4 eyeshadow shades and then the 1 transformer shade included on each section of the palette. And I actually did not cheat on this. Like, if one section didn't have a blending shade or a transition shade, I just went with it and did what I could. There were just a lot of different colors on this palette that I definitely don't always gravitate towards when I do my eyeshadow normally. So like I said, I wanted to challenge myself and try to come up with 4 different looks only using the shades that come on each section of the palette. So the first eyeshadow look I did was inspired by the North section of the palette, and also a little bit by White Walkers. If you guys don't watch the show and don't know what that is, they're not zombies, but they're basically like the living dead. So there's a black shade and then a lot of dark blue and silvery shades to go with that theme. The second look I did was based on House Stark. I used the shades from House Targaryen to create the third look, and then the eyeshadow I'm wearing right now is based on the shades from House Lannister, which I will go ahead and say is probably the section of the palette that I think I'm going to get the most everyday use out of, because it does have a matte blending shade, a darker red to add definition, and a couple shimmers to play with on the lid. Plus, I really liked how the King's Landing Transformer shade looked when I used it as highlighter today. So, there's my initial thoughts on the palette, if you're interested. Oh, and then the inside of the box is a little map of Westeros too. That's awesome. Okay, if you do end up liking this video and this style of video where I come up with different eye looks using only one palette, then make sure you give this video a thumbs up so I know and I can make more like it in the future. Subscribe to my channel down below if you haven't yet, and click the bell notification so you know exactly when I upload new videos. My Facebook and Instagram social media links will also be in the description box, along with an entire playlist of all the different makeup videos I've done in the past if you want to check any of those out. If you want to see how I created those 4 different eye looks, then let's get into it. For the first look, I used all 5 of the shades inspired by House Stark. I started by taking the dark brown iridescent shade called Winter is Here and applying that to the outer edges of my eyes. Then I blended that color out and a little bit into my crease using Nymeria, which is this warm brown shade. This shade in particular went on so smoothly and blended out really well. Then I took Weirwood Leaves, this deep plum color, and placed that right beside of the dark brown shade, blending those two together a little bit. Then I took Winterfell, which is a very pretty glittery gold shade, and applied that to the beginning and middle of my eyelids. One thing I did notice with this shade was that there was a lot of fallout with the glitter, so I did try to take a clean powder brush and wipe that away as soon as I was done using it. But it is so pretty and packs on really nicely, so I'm not too mad about it. I really wanted to use that metallic green iridescent shade somehow, so I used it on my lower lash line, blending that out with a little bit of Nymeria again because it was just a really good blending color. Last, I took a little bit of Winterfell and used that as an inner corner eye highlight. I wanted to focus on the colors of the eyeshadows themselves because they are so bold, so I skipped the liner and just put on some black mascara to finish up this eye look. My next look was White Walker inspired, so I used the 5 shades in that exact section of the palette. There isn't really a transition shade to use in this section, and I was feeling brave, I guess, so I went in without one and tried a more dramatic costume-esque look, taking Frozen North, which is this deep teal shimmer shade, applying that all over my lid up to my crease, and winging that out with my natural eye shape. I will say that there was, once again, a lot of fallout with this shade in particular, which you will probably be able to see in some of the shots later. I tried to dust it off as best as I could, but even with wetting the brush, fallout was definitely a noticeable issue with this shade. I left some room on the inner corners of my eyes to use the lighter blue shade in this section called White Walker on. I outlined the bottom of the wings I created with the shimmery silver color Free Folk. I smoked out my lower lash line with Take the Black. I wanted to use this section's white transformer shade, Hard Home, as highlight, so I applied a little bit of that to the inner corners of my eyes as well, and right underneath my brows. I also used it as my face highlight, which I thought looked really pretty and not too glittery in my opinion. My third look was based on the House Targaryen section of the palette, as you can see from my failed attempt at some Daenerys braids. Using only these 5 shades definitely proved to be the hardest challenge out of the 4 looks because there are no matte transition shades, just 5 metallics and shimmers, so I decided to just use each shade in a different sequence on my lid and lower lash line. I started with this section's Transformer shade, which is this sparkly pink color called Bay of Dragons, on the very inner sections of both my eyes. Then I moved on to House Targaryen, this pale rose gold metallic shade, and applied that to the next fourth of my eye. On the next section of my lids, I used Bend the Knee, this really light lilac blue color. And I finished up on the very outer corners of my eyes with the darker purple metallic shimmer shade Stormborn, winging that out a little bit with the natural shape of my eyes. Moving on to my lower lash line, I applied the gold metallic shade Dothraki almost all the way across except for the outer edges of my eyes. For those, I used a little bit of that pretty bend the knee lilac shade again to underline the darker purple wing I just shaped out. There are so many cool eye looks I want to try using these shades. I was just really determined for this video to stick to the specific shades from each house and character section in this palette, so I stuck with applying them to my lid rather than risking trying to apply shimmers in my crease area and probably messing the whole look up, if I'm being honest. My fourth and last eye look was House Lannister inspired. I started by applying the peachy matte shade House Lannister as my transition shade. Then with a smaller brush, I added some more definition to my crease with the burgundy shade named Lannister Red. I blended Casterly Rock, this dark metallic bronze color, to the outer half of my lids and into the outer corners of my eyes as well. On the inner halves of my lids, I applied this warm coppery metallic shade named Red Keep. On my inner corners and underneath my eyebrows, I added King's Landing as a highlighting shade. It's the Transformer shade in this section, and it's a pretty shimmery pale gold. And I also really liked how it looked as highlight on the rest of my face too. I finished up by blending both House Lannister and Lannister Red underneath my eyes to balance them out a little bit. And those are all four of the eyeshadow looks I came up with using the Urban Decay Game of Thrones eyeshadow palette. Let me know which one was your favorite and if you've bought this palette yet or if you plan to, since it is limited edition. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye!